damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Alright, this is Travis Wayne Goodsell. This is the first time I've done a narration voice system process. With the Union of States that the person who is doing the Texas lawsuit tweeted or posted on social media the other day, it has become necessary for those of us in America to get an idea of what is going to happen if the full 18 states do indeed secede from the nation or cause a civil war. And so I thought I'd go over with you, thus the narration, so that you can see the various states as we talk about this, because some of us need a brush up on our states and their names, even though the election helped bring a lot of it back to my memory. But the map that you're seeing does not include Arizona. Arizona is supposed to be included in this. I found this picture online, and it was before Arizona joined. So Arizona is the 18th state. Now, what is interesting is that Idaho is not included. And that comes to our first discussion for this board game idea for the Second Civil War. And you know it's going to happen. There will be a future game. I don't think they do board games anymore, but my previous video is finished, so let me publish this, and we can get right into the video here. Huh. Wow, there's already 15 from a Joseph Smith family monument erection. Alrighty. Yeah, we're still recording. Good. Alrighty. So I hope I remembered to talk about Saturn and Jupiter. Everybody's been saying 800 years. Well, as it turns out, somebody has now come out and said, no, it was like this back in 1623. That's 400 years. Somebody's wrong, or both are right, and somebody just missed the 1623. So I'll do a separate video on that one later on. What we're faced with is obviously this is not a clear, cut and dry division, because there are people within the red states who are wanting to become separated with Trump as their president, which the capital of their union of states would become Florida. Mar-a-Lago would become the president's office, but it won't be a president, will it? It'll be a monarchy. As the rest of the states, if they choose to unite, there's going to be some transportation issues that we'll also need to discuss. But there are citizens within the red states, and there are citizens in the other states that are not joining this lawsuit who either don't want to, well, they don't want to be with their particular state. They're rebels. And so the first thing that may happen would be those who are opposed to creating a union of states state versus those who don't want to be a part of not having the union of states, you'll have to, there, it's likely there's going to be some mass movements that go on. And this is only if there's a peaceful division. Because Congress is required to deal with secession and addition of states to the Union. And if this is the case where they say, no, screw Congress, we're just doing it. We're no longer considered part of the United States. We are now the Union of States, and we are now forming our new laws. Trump is our president, and that's the way it is. You're gonna see people move out of the red states, and you're going to see people move in to the red states, as you see people move to the non-Union of states and people moving out of those states to move into the red states. So a massive migration will take place, and the ones who won't be able to migrate will be those who are the poor and the homeless, unless they do a walking transition or hitchhike into another state. What needs to be understood from an LDS perspective is that Missouri and Illinois are not in this lawsuit. Utah and Arizona are in this lawsuit. And so, which are Mormons going to choose? Are they going to choose the church and Utah? Or are they going to say, hey, wait a minute, no, this seems like it's the last days as prophesied in the Book of Mormon and by Joseph Smith. I think we might need to be going to Missouri or Illinois. So there's going to be a division among Mormons as to whether this is the Exodus that has been prophesied for the church. But then we have a problem with transportation. We have Utah and Arizona that are isolated from the main body that divides America in half. And isn't it interesting that it divides America in half? Because you have Montana, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and then Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, that are all joined together. South Carolina is not joined together, actually. The 4 states that are blue are the disputed states that the Supreme Court said, no, we're not making a decision on this. So Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, as they cited for Biden, will not be part of this union of states. But we need to discuss that also. So with transportation, if all things being equal as represented by the current attempt, and there's no wars and other stuff to flip states and so forth, if this is the way it ends up in the end, that America is now divided into these 2 nations, there's an issue of transporting goods and services to the states that are not directly connected with roads and transportation lines. You've also got to determine air travel. Will Kansas, Nebraska allow travel from planes from Indiana into Utah? Well, yes, obviously they would. But Illinois to Colorado or Missouri to Colorado, for example? Will Kansas allow Missouri goods and services to enter into Colorado? And it's not likely they will. That there's going to be a anti-commercial transport ban and a no-fly zone and all that stuff for situations. And so what would have to happen is Canada and Mexico would have to be involved. If the West Coast and the East Coast, Northeast Coast, were to be able to trade with each other. Minnesota and the New York, Vermont, Maine would have to utilize roads in Canada to get into Idaho and Washington, to get into those other states. And New Mexico would have to be by way of Idaho to Wyoming. And so there's likely to be new roads created to make sure that transportation into the evil empire states are no longer accessible. So we're looking at a whole infrastructure redesign with transportation roads and travel. For Utah and Arizona, they would have to utilize Mexico to obtain goods and services from the evil empire through Texas into Mexico. And so there'd have to be deals and arrangements with Mexico in order to create a road system to connect the Arizona and Texas together so that Utah can also benefit. Utah has $1 billion in savings to utilize, but Utah has always been one that brings in business rather than being self-sufficient, self-reliant, as the church has been trying to demand Mormons be. And as a result, Utah may end up suffering more than they would have, more than previously known. It's a desert, and so Utah is pretty much for tourism, with the parks and the mountains for snow, and it's not really known for much in the way of being an independent producer of goods and services. Yes, there are those in Utah, but I kind of wonder if Utah will fizzle out and become a ghost town. The church, being the massive corporate empire that they are worldwide, they will continue to thrive, and that may be why the church, or why Utah will survive during all this. But without the church, Utah would fall. And so Indiana and West Virginia, those are going to be tricky, because Kentucky and Virginia separate those, and so I can see wars in that region in order to get goods and services into Indiana and West Virginia. And Kentucky I see as the key battleground state to establish transportation routes to those areas. And so the wars part of it, Georgia is surrounded. Only North Carolina is not involved in this. But again, if this involves an actual physical civil war, we're going to definitely see some differences when the war is over and done with and the results are in. Yeah, would America take back these countries, or would they allow them to continue? And would these countries take over other states? Would they take Georgia? Would they take Kentucky and other states involved? There are some states that are typically Republican but flipped for this one specific election. I believe Missouri is red, and so Missouri could easily turn red and join. This is what we need to factor in as well, is who would give in or join the Union of States if actual war commenced. And in that particular case, I could easily see Idaho also joining, which means they don't need to use Mexico. They just go north through Montana down into Idaho. And so that would solve their transportation problems to Utah and Arizona. Though Arizona may want to have a Mexico route into Texas because it's quicker. And so, would Colorado then fall, or New Mexico fall, or Wyoming fall? Because these are where the immediate battle strategies would begin, is making sure that there is no division between those who want to be a part of the Union of States. And so Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, and Kentucky would all, and Georgia and North Carolina would be hotspots for the major thrust of the war. We also need to factor in how the U.S. military will play a part. Will it just dissolve with this war, or would they be used by either Biden or Trump? And that's an unknown issue right now. Trump now controls the Pentagon, whereas Biden is the duly elected president-elect. And so, again, we don't know who the military would side for. The various state National Guard, however, would be controlled by the governors. And so each governor would be in control of their own National Guard army. In Utah, we also have the air base, and we have the nuclear testing site. So Utah does have an advantage in that we could be the producer of nuclear weapons to use against others. God help us if that were the case. Hawaii, it will become part of the, it's not a part of it. So I can see that the big vacation spots are with the United States. There are obviously tourist spots and vacation spots everywhere in the United States, but the big one is obviously the islands of Hawaii, as well as Florida, California. But Alaska, I could easily see Alaska being given up to Russia. As much as, I don't, unless the United States can protect it, it's so far up and out of the way that I can easily see Russia taking advantage of this weakness in America and just occupying it, taking it over, as America is stuck having to fend off the Union of States. So I'm concerned for Alaska. They'll have to flee into Canada and to come down either to their side of the issue, whether it's the Union of States or whether it's the United States. So they'd be coming into Washington or Montana, being the first quickest route into the Union of States. The other states like California, Oregon, Washington, and Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, those in a wartime strategy would be dependent upon the internal division, those who side with the Union of States within their state. And that's what I see happening as well, is that there will be state wars that rise up to try to turn the state to side with the Union of States. And so not only will Kentucky, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico be the hot spots, but there'll be internal strife as well, as they'll get extra help from the Union of States. But likewise, the Union of States will have an internal war of those who don't want to be the Union of States and want to side with the United States. And so this is going to be massive of an undertaking. And even though this is the initial sides that have been drawn, we're still going to experience changes over time, depending on how long this war lasts. And so it'll be dependent on who the National Guardsmen side with in this war. If they side with the Union, or if they side with the United States and their military might in fighting the battle. The majority of the regular citizenry are not really trained for war. They may be former law officers, they may be former military, they may own guns to go hunting, they may be a part of a militia group, but they're not an organized militia. And as a result, the citizenry are the ones who are going to suffer the most during this wartime, as it's going to be difficult to identify Union versus United States citizenry, which may help migrations in the beginning, depending on how organized the Union is. For example, if there are those of us who want to get the hell out of Utah, not be a part of the Union of States, and we're going to find a place that will be more peaceful, as Independence, Missouri, and Adirondack, they're right there on the border by Kansas City. And so it's not likely to be as peaceful as Mormons might think it might be. And as a result, Mormons would travel into Colorado. Colorado may say, hey, you guys are leaving Utah? All right, on. you can join us. But if you're saying, well, we want to get into Missouri or Illinois, and if you don't understand why Southern Illinois, you've not been paying attention to my videos. But we'll have a lot of underground movements, and for that you'll need to watch the TV shows Allo Allo, it's a British comedy, or Hogan's Heroes. Also, they're in the prison camps of Nazi Germany, but a lot of subversive action to avoid being captured in both of those shows. So great wartime strategies. But we'd have to figure out a way to get through enemy lines to get to Missouri, if not Southern Illinois. And so that's going to be the tricky part. It may require a parting of the Red Sea. I'm highly suspicious that the Union of States, once it's declared it's on, that the borders will be immediately shut down, and they will demand to see everybody's birth certificate, and they're likely to create unique ID systems for those who are of the Union of States, so that if you have a United States state license or a birth certificate that shows you're from one of the states of the United States, you're likely to be taken prisoner at the border or denied entrance in. And so that's going to be a concern with an exodus up and coming. And it's going to be tough for people who want to come to America. I'm in communication with several people who are Mormon, but who want to come to America to build Zion. And it's going to be a conflict for members throughout the world. Who do they trust? Who do they go to? Do they try to make it to Utah to stay with the church, who's the evil religious empire? Or do they go to Missouri, as they've been led to believe, in Independence, which is right there in the hotspot zone by Kansas City? Or do they go to Southern Illinois, which is still in the hotspot area, because Kentucky will be a major hot zone? But yeah, this is going to be very history making, we'll just call it that. So yeah, this is going to get ugly. So yeah, we'll see what transpires. But it's not going to look pretty. But that's my initial pre-board game strategy session as to things that need to be factored in once all this gets implemented. And God help us all.